I think I caught the lag end of the previous presentation, and it was all about, as you mentioned, around how consumers are thinking about it. But what I'm going to talk about is like how enterprises are thinking about it, and more importantly, if you are either a product company who wants to create a product that has AI embedded in it, and then you want enterprises to buy it from you, then this is going to be an interesting journey for you. Or if you are an internal team of any enterprise and you're trying to productize an AI project that you want the people inside the enterprise to actually use and adopt, then that's called an internal productization. So that's going to be interesting for you as well. So we're going to get started. I'm going to keep it pretty informal, and we'll go through it rather quickly. And I'll also show you some examples of how we have done it. Because what I've noticed is that when you go into a lot of conferences like this, and this is my third in a row, I can't wait to get home. But when you go there, there's a lot of theoretical information. So a lot of people come up and say like, oh, it should happen this way and it should happen that way. But I don't really see enough of an examples of companies or teams sharing how did they do it and were they able to productize it and be successful. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm not going to stand here and pontificate. I'm going to give you examples of how we did it, how we were able to bring this product to the market, and how the adoption is going along. So again, do not consider this as a gospel. Think of it as one example of a successful productization of AI. And then you can take whatever makes sense to you and add it into your either external or internal product. So I'm going to summarize this here. In the end, what's the goal for the AI? And I can stand here and be, kind of, hey, it's to improve the condition of humanity or something like that. Or I can be very realistic and say, you want to be successful in your AI project. And success could mean different things to you. You might want your internal people to adopt it. That is success. Or you might want to make a lot of revenue off of it if you are an actual product company. So success in AI, so this is just tongue-in-cheek we kind of created because we are all geeks in the end. We wanted to create an equation for it. So what are the components of being successful in an AI project? And it goes something like that. There is the first and the foremost, the one that will determine whether you are successful or not, is the user experience. And what do I mean by user experience? User experience is how and when and in what context can a user use AI. And we'll talk about it that one size does not fit all. It's not just about a ChatGPT style conversational models. Actually, they are the least valuable when you come to enterprises. So we'll talk a little bit about what are the different ways to build a user experience for enterprise users when it comes to AI. Now, again, in the middle is technology. Technology is important. It is moving very fast. But I will be the first one to tell you here that technology is not the most important factor when it comes to the success of your AI project. It's something that you need to keep pace with, something you need to understand it, but don't go running after the latest and the greatest, not when you're actually productizing something. If you're playing around with it, if you're doing experimentation, go for it. But productization does not require for you to be current with technology to this hour. That's a very important learning that we have. The next one is willingness to pay. In 95% of presentations on AI, this component is missing. Nobody tells you how to monetize it. And look, monetization or willingness to pay or willingness to invest can be for external audiences or internal audiences. For example, if you are building a product, then your willingness to pay is by your customer. Will your customer pay for the investment that you have made in AI? If you're an internal team, then that willingness to pay really comes in terms of, will the company invest in your project? Would people adopt it? Right? If you're an internal service provider, then lines of businesses, would they pay for your investment or not? So whether you're an internal team or a product team, the willingness to pay is absolutely critical. Because remember, willingness to pay also tells you what is the perception of the value from a user's point of view. The good old way, what is the value of your company? What's the value of your house? What's the value of your car? What is the value of anything that you want to sell? It is only determined by what somebody is willing to pay for it, right? That's the whole equation of the valuation. So willingness to pay is a completely critical component of success in AI. And of course, the denominator is the trust gap, right? So all the things at the top, as they increase, your success percentage or probability increases, trust gap goes the other way. Higher the trust gap, less is the probability of your success. Now I want to spend a couple of minutes on trust gap. Actually, we can do it on the next slide. I'm going to jump a little bit on the slides here. So trust and value. It looks like a really, really simple graph, but I would say that if you understand this graph, then the chances of you having a successful AI product is actually very high. So on left-hand side, on the x-axis, or on the bottom side on the x-axis is complexity and trust, and on the y-axis is value. So what do we mean by that? So let's talk about complexity and trust. First thing, we are talking about enterprise user. We are not talking about a consumer here. So I think the last presenter, he was talking about privacy and stuff. On enterprises, that trust issue is based on something else. The first big issue in terms of trusting in AI is, will it take my job? We have had years and years of first-hand experience with thousands and thousands. We are a big company. We have 100,000 customers, and we've been doing AI products for the last 7 years. The first thing is, will this AI take my job? And the interesting part is, depending upon where you are in the organization. If you look at the C-suite, they're going to be like, yeah, of course, because that goes to the bottom line. That's productivity. That's efficiency. So that's what they're looking for. But when you go to the actual people in the company who are supposed to use it, the first question is it too efficient? Will it help me too much? Will that mean that my job is no longer needed? So if you're building an AI product, the first thing that you have to think about is, will your user think that this product is going to take my job? That's one of the biggest things on trust. The second thing that factors into the trust of an enterprise user is accuracy. How accurate is it? Like, remember, we do networking and security. These are critical functions for any enterprises out there. This is not writing an email. This is not writing a poem about your dog, right? This is, say, a network that underpins a nuclear reactor out there, or the entire railway system of a country and stuff. So these are mission-critical environments. Their accuracy matters a lot. And remember, the people who are judging the accuracy of it are subject matter experts in there. So the criteria is very high. Nobody cares there what is the accuracy of the underlying model. What they care about is, if I were doing it or somebody like me were doing this problem, does AI get close enough to that where I can actually trust it and be able to do that? So those are some of the things that fall into the trust part. Now, of course, from a company's point of view, privacy, data residency, data governance and stuff, those are important as well. But for the end user, these two things are the trust. Complexity. I put complexity with trust. You can think of complexity as implementation, or you can talk about how difficult it is to reduce that gap. You can read it both ways. And then the value increases from there. The next I will talk about, there are different, so let me just come back because I kind of went through that pretty quickly. So how did we productize it? We just recently launched Extreme Platform One. You're not here to learn about Extreme Platform One, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is really a platform that combines all of our networking applications, networking management applications, all of our analytics applications, and all of security applications, all into a single platform. And yes, AI is not considered a product or a feature in it, but as a core capability for it. And on top of it, obviously, it is meant for various different teams. It is not just for NetOps, but SecOps, or finance people, for marketing people, so on and so forth. So the reason for having this slide in there is that the learnings that I'm sharing here have actually resulted to one of the biggest launches that we have done. Right? So I'm kind of sharing with you real-time experiences here. So coming back to the trust part. Trust is also not linear, just like I showed you on this slide. That is a very pretty, neat slide. It looks like everything goes great, awesome. It doesn't work that way. It works something like this. And this will come back to the experience of it. People get used to, say, using a chatbot for a specific use case. And then you move them to using a different use case, and the trust dips down, and then you have to rebuild. So the point there is that trust is not linear in nature. Even for the same person, that might trust ChatGPT style AI to write their essay or write their incident reports, we'll stick to enterprise examples, might not like that or trust that to do their actual job. So always categorize your use cases and think about trust in the context of a specific use case. Because the same person might have two different levels of trust when it comes to different use cases. This is absolutely critical for productization of AI. Okay, so if you move forward, the first thing we'll talk about, so we talked about trust a little bit, let's talk about user experience. Now, there are three ways in which in our platform a user can experience it or interact with it or interface, whatever word looks best and whatever word you want to use. And I'll show you some examples of this as well. So the three are conversational, interactive, and autonomous, right? And you already know all of this. So conversational is your ChatGPT style. You're asking a human language question, you get a human language answer. We've been using it since ChatGPT, so people are very familiar with it. Interactive is, and actually really interesting that we launched it last week, and then I heard that OpenAI just came out with their AI canvas, which is funny because we call it canvas as well. But the idea is the same, that it's a canvas with you and you are collaboratively, you're interactively creating an entire workflow with AI. And the last one is obviously autonomous agents. So let me just quickly take examples of this. And it's probably not that readable. So don't worry too much about it. Don't squint in it. I will describe it to you. So this is a conversational interface. What's happening is that the user is sitting there, and some problem happens either through a ticket or somebody tells them. He goes in or she goes in, and now what they're doing is that they're kind of remediating it or they're troubleshooting it. They're asking information. So first use case, finding a piece of information from your operational data, right? So this is the alerts and messages and issues in your network. So finding that information, then they realize that one of the issues, I actually don't really know what the hell this means, right? So then it easily switches back to your knowledge use cases, and now it's teaching that person what this issue or what this error code actually means, and then it goes from there, and this is a conversational style example. So two big value propositions here. I can find a specific piece of information for you very quickly, and if you don't know what it means, then I can actually very quickly educate as to what it means. The second one is more valuable than the first one. Why? The current biggest problem for enterprises is skill shortage. Trying to find people who actually know this and are subject matter experts, that is very difficult. So in context knowledge acquisition, if you can build that into your product, the chances are an enterprise user will definitely use that. So that's one example of a conversational experience. Now, also a couple of things to remember. This is in context. An enterprise user does not want to be working in one interface and then open up their phone to talk to ChatGPT. You can't do that. Build it in context. It's the same UI. It's the same workflow that they use on a daily basis. Now, this is a simple example. You start in the Teams. If you use Teams from Microsoft, something happens from a message, you go in there. This is a remediation use case, and this is essentially human in the loop. If you're building an AI use case, it sounds really fancy and awesome to stand up here and say, and you don't even have to worry about it. It will just do it for you. Bad words. Do not use those words in front of an enterprise user because nobody yet trusts the AI to actually accomplish this on its own. So what was the example? There was some issue in a Wi-Fi network. It went in, it actually diagnosed it, and then it asked the human if the human wants to remediate it. So this is the human in the loop. The human asks a couple of questions and then say, yeah, go and fix it for me. Then it fixes it for it, and it also generates an incident report for you. So where would the human in the loop show up? That is a critical placement when it comes to AI products for enterprises. But absolutely build human in the middle. Next example, this is the canvas example. Sometimes just having a conversation is not good enough. So what are we doing in this one? This one is the licenses example, right? So this is an example where you have a few things, you have a lot of data around it, and what you want to do is that you want to have on-demand data generation or on-demand dashboarding. I will take a sidestep on this and I'll give you my prediction. My prediction is that when it comes to enterprise use cases with very fancy UI and dashboard on top of it, in about 3 years, we will start creating, or maybe even earlier than that, we will start creating products that will have zero UI on it. And the UI would be created in real time based on your need and on your conversation. And we have put these capabilities already in Extreme Platform 1 AI Canvas, where as you speak and as you chat, it is creating an entire new dashboard, an entire new experience for you. And by the way, either you can then publish this experience as an agent, so then it can run continuously for you in the background, or you can publish it as a report. Think about compliance reports and stuff out there. Or you might just decide that this is the information that I actually need on a daily basis to do my job. So from now onward, this is going to be my UI, not the UI or the dashboard that the vendor created for me. So real-time, on-demand UI dashboarding and reporting, in my opinion, that is one of the most valuable use cases for enterprise users. Because if you're using any application out there, what is your experience? You look at it and you want to change a few things. Most of the times, you'll go back to the company and you'll ask them, you'll maybe open up an RFP, and like maybe 6 months later or a year later, they might do it, and that too depending on how much money you spend with that company. So with capabilities like this, think about real-time customization for every individual user. So this is our AI Canvas. This is the collaborative way of doing things. Now, this slide is interesting because we talk about agentic AI quite a bit. And like that is the word for 2025, agentic AI. The reality is we are already using agentic AI behind the curtain. So in Extreme Platform 1, when something comes up, there are multiple different AI agents behind the scene, and that's the only way we can really do very, very complex, workflows out there. But I don't want to talk about agentic AI. I actually want to talk about agents as they would come across to your users. And we probably have to come up with a better word for that, but this is agents as seen by the humans. So what are these agents? Some of the characteristics. One of the most important things is they're autonomous in nature. They can either do things with you or for you. That's the most important part. Second thing is that they can be reactive or proactive. And the third part that I would say is these agents are very specialized in a few things. Not a lot of things. Why? Why do I define agents this way? So let's take an example. How do you create teams today? Do you hire one person and say this one person will do everything? Most probably not. And if you do, good luck to you. I mean, like, that's awesome. Then hold on to that guy or gal that can do everything. You create teams, and teams are created based on experts, subject matter experts, or people who have job descriptions to do multiple different things. This is a human team today. Now, in a very idealistic world, probably a world that will never happen, and hopefully never happens, is that all of those humans are replaced by these agents. And remember, these are not the agentic agents that are behind the curtain. These are the agents that are in front of the curtain. What they are doing is that they are essentially your new digital workforce. So instead of having an RF manager who happens to be a human, you will have an AI agent that is an RF management and does the same thing for you. But I don't think that this will happen. Even if the tech exists, there are other reasons for this not to happen. So where would it actually go? It will be something like this. It will be the workforce of the future where sentient and artificial workforce will actually work together. So that's the idea behind when we talk about agents, we are talking about this digital workforce and not necessarily those agents that you spawn in the background when an AI workflow happens, because that thing is already present. So, okay, if that's how you think about agents, then you have to think about a couple of things. How do you hire teams? Do you just go out, walk the door, and ask the first person walking by, would you like to work for me? No, there is a way to find the talent. So that means that you need to have a discovery mechanism. So this is like an example of a discovery mechanism. Then after that, when you hire a person, you need to train that person. You need to tell that person what their job description is. This is very similar to actually configuring an agent. That's what in this example somebody is doing. So you find the right agent, you configure the right agent, and there are multiple ways to do it. You can do it through conversation, or you can do it through drop downs, or whatever the case might be. And once you have configured or orchestrated that agent, then you essentially have that agent run, and there will be multiple agents. I do not believe that there will be, and this is running on a repeat, so I'll move to the next one. So I do not think that there will be few agents that will do a lot more things. There will be a lot more agents that will do fewer things. Why? Any guess why I'm predicting that? Because technology is capable of producing AI agents that can do a lot of complex things. Why do I think that we will have lots of agents doing fewer amount of things? Any guesses? More modular, but think about the denominator. It's the trust gap. Would you trust AI to do one step of your workflow, or would you trust it to do all of it? Where we are right now, the more defined and granular the AI agent is, the easier it would be to get over that trust gap. So always remember that equation. That equation will help you figure out how to productize this. Okay. I'm not going to go into the next two slides because a lot of people here are very good in AI technology, so I don't need to tell you about all of the latest and the greatest that's out there, but I'll give you a couple of my messages. So when you are building a platform that has AI as a core capabilities, these are typically the three layers. You have to deal with data. That's ingestion of data, indexing of it. More importantly, how do you govern and manage that data? You have to put some AI services on top of it. Obviously, this is where your model management and RAG and advanced RAG and all those kind of things come in. And more importantly, the safety and the guardrails at the top. Remember, that is about accuracy, being factual from a technology point of view. Some of the learnings that we had when we were building this. Number one, don't just worry about the safeguards at the top. A lot of people worry about like, hey, what are the safeguards? Can they ask AI to produce a bomb or, ask a couple of things? Very, very important. But when you come into the enterprise use cases, factual correctness is really important. So know how your application is factual and correct for that use case in comparison to a subject matter expert. That's the critical realization. It's not just about how correct your model is. It is how correct your entire application is. When it comes to AI services, metadata and RAG, I think they win the game, at least at this point in time. And last one, when it comes to data governance, interesting learning. When you're producing new document that you are going to put into your RAG architecture or make available for your AIs, please find people who are not English literature majors, because you do not need Shakespearean language to write it. What we found is that the more flowery the language, more marketing the language, the more difficult it becomes for you to really bring it into your application and get that factual correctness. So you're going to have to retrain people who create documentation or data for your applications. Okay. In the end, as I said, you can build it, great, awesome, but in the end, you need to sell it, which means either to your internal audiences or your external audiences. Willingness to pay is very dependent on adoption, as we are saying here, but even then, it really differs quite a bit based on your use case. And we don't have time to go into the ARC framework, but you can search for it. This is something that I've been talking about for a while. Broadly speaking, the use cases fall in three categories. You're either accelerating something, or you're replacing something, or you're creating something new. So your willingness to pay will depend upon what your use case is. I will leave you, because we have 20 seconds left, I will leave you with some questions. As you determine how you're going to monetize it, think about what are you going to base it on. Are you going to base on the current expense of doing that workflow, how much money the humans take to do that work? Will you base your AI on that? Would you base it on the cost of delivering that AI? Or would you base it on the value that is generated by the AI? If any one of you are actual product people or business people, there is no real answer to this question today. And my prediction is that actual adoption of AI in enterprise will depend very heavily on what you choose here. So I know we went through very, very quickly. In the end, you want your AI project to be successful. Think about user experience, technology and willingness to pay, but never ever take your eye off of that trust gap. Thank you so much. Hopefully that will give you some things to think about.